Hello everyone, it's Shel C, and today I'm sharing with you a playtime I had this morning with some gel plate printing and alcohol inks. Before I get started, I was showing you some prints that we did yesterday on the Art Joy of Sharing live stream show. Peg Robinson and I live stream every Thursday on that other channel, which there's a link below the video if you want to go watch how all these prints were made. Same subject matter, alcohol ink with the gel plate. And I didn't make a fast video because my camera shut off 10 minutes into the show. Uh, so I had no footage. I have to take secondary footage when I'm doing the live show because there's two of us on the screen. If I want to make something for this channel, I have to have a separate recording of it. And the camera just decided to shut off, and I didn't know because I was so engrossed in what I was doing that it just happened and I didn't know anything about it. So these are all the ones I did on the live stream show yesterday. Some of them are really super cool, but they're all combinations of alcohol ink with either just the gel press or with acrylic paint or with Distress Oxide ink. I used, what else did I use? Some hand sanitizer, just alcohol in a spray bottle, different stuff like that to do different techniques. So I decided to recreate some of that today because all the stuff was still out, and I thought maybe it would be nice to have something with this subject matter on this channel as well in a speed video. So the first thing I was doing here was showing how you can use your alcohol markers that you use for coloring and shading. Some people have these. This is the Spectrum Noir brand, but there's also, all different kinds of other ones. So if you have alcohol markers, but you don't have alcohol ink, you can certainly use them instead. And you just draw them onto the plate. You can use a stencil like I am. I put a layer of the markers down and then kind of spritzed it with alcohol. That's the only thing, is that it does leave marks. The brush marks do remain on the plate because the alcohol markers are drier than the bottled alcohol inks. You can also use the re-inkers from the alcohol inks. If you have a brand that has an option of getting a re-inker, that's just straight out alcohol ink in a bottle. And sometimes you can get them really economically that way because they're larger bottles. So what I did with that was I wrote some marker colors on there, spritzed it with a little bit of alcohol in a mini mister, and then kind of blended it. Then I put a stencil over the top and used a different contrasting colors of markers. I'm working in two different plates at the same time to give the alcohol inks time to dry in between layers. That doesn't take very much time here in Arizona, but I did work with the 6x6 and the 12x12 alternating. Yesterday I had my 3x5, my 6x6, and my 8x10 all together, alternating back and forth, and ended up using mostly the smaller ones. So while I was waiting for that to dry, I also put some alcohol ink from bottles, just splashed it onto my larger plate, and then I blended that slightly. You don't want to blend a whole lot, because if you use more than one color and you blend them together, you just get one color blended. So you just kind of blend here, blend there, maybe clean off your brayer. Use a small brayer. This is a 2-inch soft rubber brayer. And just a little bit of blending, and then I let that dry, put a stencil over it, let it dry. Then I put some darker colors, and I pulled that one in between while I was waiting for that to dry. So you see it's back and forth, back and forth. The other thing that I like to do, I don't like to waste that ink, and I like to clean it off my stencils and make another impression. And so I will either use hand sanitizer brayered over the stencil or misted alcohol in a mister and reactivate that alcohol ink on the stencil and then press it down onto something. And as you can see, you get a mark. It's a whole different look. It's really cool looking, just different with that excess alcohol that's left on the stencil. And then on this one, I let that dry a little bit, put some white, just a very thin layer of white paint I think I used white, and picked up that print. When you are picking up layers off of your plate, you need to just really minimize how much paint you put on there. Too much paint and you're not going to get anything to pull up. You've got to do a really thin layer. In fact, so thin that you can see through it. So if you get too much on there, you can brayer it off onto your roll-off paper, or in this case, I was just using my under paper today. I had these inexpensive, basically junk paints that were in neon colors that I was trying to use up. And so I was trying to use those in between, but I really just like the medium grade tube acrylic paints to do my gel printing with. Liquitex Basics, Amsterdam, those type of ones. You can get Artist Loft at Michael's. You can get, I think it's called Master's Touch at Hobby Lobby, but they're just their mid-range tube paint. I think that is the best choice, in my opinion, in Arizona for gel printing. I don't have to wait around a lot. It dries fast enough. And that's what I like to use. That's the acrylic I like to use. Also, the tube paints that come in a large set from Arteza are really nice. Actually, I need to get those out and finish using up my tubes because I know that some of them are very low and I could just use the whole thing up and then I wouldn't have it sitting on my shelf forever. So with this one, I put down some black paint, and then I brayered over some green and some turquoise, light turquoise paint over the top, just patchily over the stencil. And then I put on some alcohol ink as well. Alcohol ink is transparent. That's the thing that you need to remember when you're making your layers, is that it's transparent. So what you're going to get is a transparent layer, and that means that you need to think about what you're putting on the bottom, what you're putting in between, and what you're picking it up with. It takes a little practice. You don't just slap it together and then call it good. You do have to think a little bit. So this one I had pulled up with a piece of Duralar to make like a transparent layer, and that's kind of like a plastic, acetate plastic, and it didn't come up with anything really, and so I used a stencil to put more alcohol ink on it. Okay, while I was messing with that, this got a little bit too dry. The paint, black paint underneath, I would have liked it had been a little bit more mushy, but I did get some really cool secondary prints with the stencil that are very neutral, and those will be absolutely fantastic to use in collage. And I was using alcohol mist and trying to clean off the stencil, and I got these really black and gray neutral prints of this stencil, which is a really cool stencil. So this one I picked up with a combination of copper and titanium buff. And that gives a different look than if you pick it up with white, because the alcohol ink is translucent or transparent, and so it kind of gives a glaze over the top of whatever you've picked it up with. But I do wish that the black had been darker on this one. But it's very grungy and cool looking anyway. It's, you know, it'll be awesome for collage. In fact, that's what I'll use these papers for. I don't really use them for anything else. I like to have painty papers that are available for my collage. So this one I put on some PBO paint. PBO is a shiny iridescent paint, and I put the orange color, the red color, and I did put, I think, a little bit of quinacridone gold on there as well. And I picked it up through the stencil with a piece of black paper, and you can see you get an interesting effect on the black paper. You get a very shiny, varied color print. And then I'm putting some different alcohol inks through the stencil, and I'm using bright colors. I have 3 different brands of alcohol ink. I have the Ranger ones. I have the Pinata from Jacquard. That's an exciter pack. Those things are intense. And then I have a Marabou set as well. So you'll see different ones, but on this particular print, I used some of those Jacquard Pinata ones, and the pink on that, the magenta, is eye-poppingly bright. I like that. And here I am making my stencil print by cleaning off some of that alcohol ink onto a piece of deli paper off the stencil. And I'm going to pick up this other one with a thin layer of white paint. Look how bright that is. Just the stuff that came off the stencil is like so bright. Pretty, very pretty. I like it. Not sure what I'm going to use it for yet, but I like it. So then this one, I'm picking up, of course, that shimmery paint from underneath, which was the first layer, and then all my alcohol ink, and then you get a shimmery print with this layer of bright alcohol ink over the top. I also wanted to show you that you can use other stuff besides stencils. Of course, I love stencils and I love StencilGirl, and so these are StencilGirl Products stencils that you're seeing today. My plates are from Gel Press because they are less expensive, and I don't see any difference between any of the other companies that make these and Gel Press. I think that Gel Press has a better price, and so I enjoy my plates from Gel Press. So on that 6x6, I put some Naples yellow paint down. And this I'm just picking up some interesting pattern that was on the plate left over from the last print. And I made some marks using just, caps from bottles and bubble wrap and stuff like that. Let that dry, and then I'm putting the alcohol ink over that. I should have made stronger marks, like thicker lines, because they kind of got lost. And I also should have put darker colors of alcohol ink on there so that you could really see. But, live and learn. It's a very interesting print regardless, and it will be absolutely perfect for, tearing it up and using it into collage in different ways. So now I'm putting some black acrylic down on my plate, my larger plate again, and I'm going to put a stencil down. This one I think is designed by Carolyn Dubie, has a lot of nice words on it. And I'm picking up the excess through the stencil onto a roll-off paper from yesterday. It had a lot of purples and pinks rolled off on it. And putting that black over the top just makes that roll-off paper suddenly be very interesting and something I will use. Although I probably would have used it anyway. It would just made it neater to have the black printing over the top. And then I'm taking metallic alcohol inks. Some of these are Marabou. There's the bronze and the copper and the gold from Marabou. The gold wasn't open. I kept having to trim it. It was being kind of a pain. These ones with the shimmer have a little ball bearing in the bottom, and you have to shake them, and because the mica can sometimes, that's what makes it shimmery, it can sometimes clog, and so you need to get it stirred up and everything real fluid before you start to use them. The other three are from Ranger, and they came out with a whole line of colors of shimmery ink, and I just have the three colors, a blue, a pink, and a yellow. When I start with a new product, I like to pick a red, yellow, and a blue to try out, and so I never bought any more of the colors, but they sure are pretty, very shimmery. So I'm just putting all these different colors over this stencil. I brayered it a little bit, but not much. More just to kind of deal with the puddles that I had more than anything, not to smooth it very much. And then I'm taking off some of the excess because I put a lot on there with a piece of black, and it has all this shimmery pattern on it now. And I'm going to pick up this other one while I'm waiting for that to dry. This is the one that had the marks on it with the different lids and things that I said I should have put darker colors on. Figured I would see if there was any alcohol ink left on that. So see, this is very interesting. It's not exactly what I expected, but that's what gel printing is all about. You just never know exactly what you're going to get. And that's what's cool about it. So I'm picking this one up now that it's all dry with all that shimmery ink. And while I was at it, I used the excess paint and rolled it onto the 6x6 to start another something. Put a stencil over it. Because I had too much paint, like we were talking about. Too much paint doesn't help you pick up the stuff off the plate. It just makes it worse. You've got to make sure it's a thin, thin layer. So I put some ink through that one, getting some off with onto the scratch paper. And then I pulled up this one with the black. I waited a little bit too long and I got a few white spots, but it looks absolutely awesome anyway. Does not matter. But I do have some extra interesting crusty bits on the plate that I plan to pick up again because they are super cool looking. So I use a little bit of light turquoise paint to pick up all those extra things that were left on the plate on the bottom there where it didn't quite pull up. Arizona is dry and it's hard to figure out just how long to wait. So that one is really bright. I picked that up with some fluorescent pink paint and it came out so nice and bright and colorful. And then these little crusty bits are super cool. See? And they're over that gray cleanup off the stencil. And it's fascinating paper. No one will ever be able to figure out how I made that. Now I'm switching over to oxide inks. I made some really nice ones yesterday with oxide ink and alcohol combined. You wouldn't think maybe that's a combination you'd want to do, but it's really cool because you've got your kind of opaque matte oxide ink and then you have your translucent alcohol ink with it, and it's a good combination. So I put some ink on the plate with the pads, just, pressing them directly onto the plate. And then I put a stencil down. I picked up the excess, and now I'm putting alcohol ink over it. And I was using really earthy tones like olive green and sienna and stuff like that from my alcohol inks. I think there was one called lettuce. And that will turn out really cool in a minute. I was trying to get some of the excess off onto my paper. I hope you're enjoying this video. I hope you're learning something, or maybe want to go play with your plate now that you've watched me do it. If you have, please remember to give this video a thumbs up. Leave me a comment or question below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on your notification bells. Share this, pin it on Pinterest. All those things help my channel by helping other people out in the YouTube universe that can't find me and would maybe like to see my content. So I'm always very grateful when you do those things. So I finally got this when I'm picking it up with that light turquoise. I think that's beautiful. Beautiful. Great colors. Very earthy. So here's all the prints I made in today's session. It was about an hour and 20 minutes. That's been condensed down into 20 minutes for your viewing pleasure, and trying not to make it too long so that you stop watching. And of course, there are pictures, photos at the end. At the beginning, you saw a photo of my dog Mika. That is how she helps when I'm trying to take photos. I usually use a black background, which is a pillowcase, and it's on my bed. And so I start to do it and I start to lay out my papers, and then she gets up there and she just keeps scooting and scooting and scooting, and eventually she's in the picture. So I figured you might want to see a picture of her doing her helping because it might make you smile. So that is it for me for today, and here comes your close-ups. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.